Hi and welcome back to our second Know Your Fall campaign period talks, which is brought to you by the War on Youth Project. Who are we talking to today, Lydia?
We're talking to Molly Fenton, who is an 18-year-old campaigner from Wales. She runs the Love Your Period campaign, and she's just been awarded Young Person of the Year award by the Welsh First Minister. So she's going to talk to us today about being a youth activist and her campaign.
Cool, let's do it.
Hello, my name's Molly. I'm an 18-year-old school pupil from Wales. I'm currently studying to do my A-levels, and I am a youth activist, which means that I've got to juggle my time between being an 18-year-old pupil and the world of youth activism and what that's all about, which is the point of today's talk. I've never done a talk or spoken to anyone about what it's like being a youth activist. It's always been about my work. So this is really exciting, and I'm hoping that maybe as I say things and talk about things, I'll realise some things as well as you, and then we can discuss it, you know, like a Q&A, but more, you know, relaxed discussion and really bounce ideas off each other, which would be great. So I am the founder of the Love Your Period campaign, which was set up in March 2019. Originally, its aims were to eradicate period poverty for Welsh school pupils. At the time, England had announced that they were having free period products for all their school pupils. And I was like, wait a minute, Welsh people have periods too. Why isn't this the same? So I kicked off and eventually got some action, because that's really what it is about. You've got to kick off and go above and beyond in order for that to happen. But today, the Love Your Period campaign has branched into all things menstruation. We're looking at period poverty across the UK. Because we achieved what is now the Period Dignity Scheme in all Welsh schools. We look at campaigning for ingredients to be more transparent on the period products that are sold in shops. We're looking at eradicating period stigma on a global scale, and we work with many charities over in East Africa and mainly a lot in London in order to help other people just have more of an understanding around periods, because this is something that I realised going into this campaign. Actually, I don't really know a lot about what periods are and what they mean as such. Like, I know there's blood coming from me every month, but that's about it. So I had to learn on this journey as well, which is what I find great. Every day I learn something new. And let's say someone asks for information, sometimes I've got to teach myself in order to help them. So it really is, you know, a very unpredictable thing, but in a really, really good way. So a little bit more about what the Love Your Period campaign offers, if anyone wants to access it. So like I've said, we're ending period poverty, helping some of the most vulnerable people across the country get period products when they're not able to. And then we work with lots of different schools, mainly school pupils, in order for them to start their own movement in their school. Because there's lots of different ways you can do activism. You can do what I did and jump out on a whim and hope for the best and started something brand new, or you can join a campaign that's already there, or, you know, work with your friends to build up on something with a team effort. That team effort is really helpful. I'll go into that in more depth, but if you're not too sure about where you stand, or you're a bit too anxious to just leap out of there, then joining a campaign that's already running or is about to run is a great way to get involved and still be a youth activist, because everyone is valid in that. We offer an LGBTQ+ support helpline 24/7 on our Instagram direct message, which is at Love Your Period. From there, we're able to signpost people. We work with a charity called Connecting Young People, who do lots of amazing work across the UK. And it's also run by a young person, someone that I know. So that signposting. And also, it's, even though I may not be able to understand, I can be there, and I can just be someone to talk to when someone feels that they're not able to contact anyone else, or talk to an adult, which is what this campaign's always been about. It's always been, hi, I'm your big sister Molly. And that's what it is. It's not a teacher, it's not a council member, it's, you know, someone that is a young person. And I feel that that's where a lot of our success has come from. So of course, lots of people message us every day with questions that maybe some people would laugh at, because they think, oh, that's such a stupid question. But really, we don't have this education. And yes, only recently, if they said, right, this is going to be in the curriculum, they've said that in Wales. And I know Brooke, the sex positive charity in England, have been doing a lot of work on that curriculum too. But I don't know about any of you, I never had any menstruation education, is what I call it. I had a 10-minute talk in year 6 where it was the teacher who drew the short straw, and the teachers made it very apparent to us that, you know, it really was the one that was unlucky that had to teach this. It was very vague. I'd already started my period by this point as well. So, you know, I'd started it 2 years before this chat. What use is it then? These questions, you know, made me really angry. So that's where I do menstruation education. I go into primary schools, and, you know, we all sit on the floor, move the tables aside, and make it a really comfortable environment. And then in secondary schools, I work with pupils on the period dignity scheme. In secondary schools, it's all about working with those who want to be youth activists themselves. So I go, here's the stuff, use my name to get what you need, and I'm here to support you do what you want to do. And that's also, you know, involving people and helping them make a difference too. So it's a platform also for people to share their story. You know, there's so many stories around menstruation. We've done a period in Sports Week where we spoke about loads of we spoke with loads of Olympians. We had like GB cyclists come on. We had dancers. We had musical theatre performers who have been in the West End, all sharing their stories as you know, professional sports person. We did an LGBTQ plus week where we had many non-binary people and this amazing trans man come forward and share their story and want to talk about periods from their perspective. More recently, we did a period-related illness week where we had lots of people across Instagram just come forward of all ages and say, I have PCOS, I want to share my story. And I feel that that education from them and that insight from them offers a lot more than I can offer. I can do my research, I can get my scientific research, I can work with the NHS stuff that I have. But I think that insight really helps people, but also not just in understanding and educating, also in really, what was I going to say? Oh yes, not just in understanding and getting to know about these illnesses that we don't have the education around, but also working out maybe if they have an issue and it's time for them to go to a doctor. I know of many people that have heard these stories and have said, I've booked a GP appointment, of course, before COVID, and a few that have come forward now to say thank you for sharing this on your platform. I've been having these symptoms. I'm going to contact my GP, and I'm like, that is perfect, please. And, you know, here's the person, talk to them, see what you can get, because social media can be used in a really good way like that. So yes, we've achieved this menstruation education. Like I said, we now have the Welsh Period Dignity Scheme, which I sit on the round table for. That essentially means that I am the only young person among all these older people, and they are trying to say what happens with this dignity scheme, and I just shout at them a lot and eventually get my own way, which I will go more into when we talk about youth activism, because like I said, sometimes that is the way it's got to be. We recently won our First Minister's St. David's Award for Young Person, 2 weeks ago for 2020-2021, which was possibly the biggest honour we've had yet. That was really exciting. Been to primary schools, and also we've been doing collections over the 2 years, mainly for food banks, hygiene banks. We worked with Women's Aid and homeless shelters, and our most recent one was at the start of the pandemic for NHS workers. We provided reusable products. So let's say a menstrual cup, they can go, they know that they're safe for 12 hours, not having to worry about their own safety and hygiene whilst working on these COVID wards where they can't guarantee they can get out every 3 hours to change their pad or tampon. Okay, so where did this come from? Because it doesn't just happen. The funny thing is it does just happen. And this is always my top tip. If you are passionate about something and you want to act on it, you've just got to do it. The more you think about it, the more you'll probably convince yourself not to do it. At the time that I was starting this campaign, I had been out of school with illness. I came out of just before my GCSEs. I was an A-star student. I was on track to get really, really, really good grades, and I became very ill and had to leave school. So I was sat around almost doing nothing, really. My whole life revolved around school before that. I was very much, I was always the teacher's pet. That's what people called me growing up. And I'd always loved school. I went from, I enjoyed my studying. I was the type of person, the wall behind me, it should be now because I've got exams in a week, but it's not, filled with revision posters and all sorts. But all of that had gone. And I was kind of a bit lost. I didn't quite know, what to do next. I was lucky enough to be able to resit my GCSEs the year after. So essentially I went back a year, but I had a lot of spare time on my hands. I was only doing, a really small fraction of the exams that I would have been doing, much less courses than I expected. And an opportunity arose for some public speaking, which was never my thing. Still today, it terrifies me until I start talking about periods, and then I'm all good. If it's any other topic, you won't get me. But if it's period related, I can do it, which is another really, really key important thing. If you're able to have a conversation about something you're passionate about, and it makes you feel like, well, it could make you feel two things. It can make you feel angry, or like really annoyed at a system or the want for it to change, or it can make you feel like, yeah, I'm meant to be talking about this. I'm meant to, to do something with this topic, or, people say maybe that's like the type of job you may want to do. So this public speaking thing came up, and I was just volunteering with my form tutor to help people do it because I didn't know people in my new year group. I didn't have a lot to do at lunchtime, break time. So I went to do that. And a few days before, there was a person that had dropped out, and I was like, well, I'll step in, but, don't put any pressure on me. I don't know what I'm doing. And when I'd been off, I'd seen a tweet about Mika George and her Free Periods campaign in London. And because I'd liked it, of course, these tweets kept coming up. That's all I kept seeing. And I thought, right, what's a topic that's maybe a bit controversial, that people wouldn't pick as a debating topic? I didn't want something generic. We're going out to win a competition here. So I put period poverty, and in the space of 3 days, I had to write a 10-minute speech and learn it, which I didn't do because I couldn't. But when the night came, I stood up and I just managed to talk, and I don't know how I did it. And I reached a time, actually I went over the time. If any of you have ever done any public speaking, or ours is run by our Rotary Club, which I know they do all over the UK. So if any of you have ever done any of that, they've got this awful traffic light thing, and it's the most intimidating thing on the planet. But intimidation can be a good thing, which is also a point I'll come back to. But having that there and having these people there and these three elderly men sat in front of me just made me more angry. I was watching the audience and, you know, people were like shying away. I've never seen people like a sea of red faces this bad before. And the more embarrassed and uncomfortable they became, the more passionate I was. And that really fueled what I was doing and what I was saying. So after this competition, they're going to announce the winners, and we came in second place. And I couldn't believe it because my school don't place in anything like this. But upon, you know, I was looking through the reports and everything because I thought, wow, maybe public speaking is my thing, or nothing about campaigning or period poverty had stuck in my mind. It was more, wow, I did this youth speech competition, it went really well. After that, I found that we were supposed to come first, and the points tallied up that we were supposed to come first, but the judges deemed the topic as inappropriate and it shouldn't have been used. So that was where the fire started. I was so angry that I marched to my next Rotary Club meeting, which was held in my local golf club. You know, all very elderly members of the Rotary Club. They're a brilliant organisation. And my local one, the youngest person there that night was 68 years old, I found out. And I stood up as they were eating their fancy meal and just went as nuts as I did on the first night. And I tell you what, I loved every minute. We made, you know, we all laughed. We all were able to have a discussion. And they said to me, right, you know, we want to help you here. We want to fund you, make you our project, do something with it. So I got home at about 10 o'clock at night and I was thinking about this for hours. I just couldn't sleep. And it was practically midnight when I started a random Instagram page and just started posting facts about period poverty with, once again, no intention of it becoming a campaign. Social media was really on my side at that time. The next morning, I went into school and spoke to my head teacher and said to them, right, what can I do? Where are we? Do we have period products here? She said, well, I have my own that I bought. And I was like, oh my word, teachers are buying their own products. This isn't right. So from there, it literally was a wave over a few days of let's collect more products, let's get out on the community pages and ask for donations, let's raise money, let's get products into schools. And then I was up at 5, 6 in the morning, packing boxes, bringing them to my local high school. The demand for them was crazy. People were collecting them and using them, which is when I realized, you know, period poverty is a real issue and people are here using these products and they're not in schools. What are we going to do? And it was from there that, you know, people were embarrassed about getting these products. And I had so many conversations with people. But not only that, when I was putting posters up around my school, I was having people, mainly boys, shout at me, you know, having a lot of verbal abuse around. I don't want to mention what some of the things were because they can be quite upsetting for some people. But essentially, it was around me being obsessed with these periods and obsessed with female anatomy and everything. And I thought, this isn't right. This is a natural bodily function. Why have I always been embarrassed? Why am I stopping putting posters up and doing it before school because I'm embarrassed? That is not right. I should be loving this. My period gives me so much. Yeah, it brings me stomach cramps and essentially puts me offline for a week. But the point is, I'm alive because of a period, so I should love it. The page then became renamed as Love Your Period. And today, I seriously don't know what happened from there. It just kept growing and growing. And today we are a campaign that is nationally recognized. And like I said, we have contacts, you know, all over Europe, lots of charities in East Africa we work with. And yeah, hopefully making a real difference to so many people's lives, more so on social media since the pandemic. But, you know, before then, we were able to do so much more in person. So yeah, being a youth activist is great and it's really rewarding. but it's really important to notice that there can be some sides that you have to be prepared for. You know, like I said, I was put down not just by a lot of young people, which I'd expect, but by a lot of adults. Even after my campaign became very successful and very well known, I was still, you know, stereotyped. I'd have older men tell me that I was a silly little girl, that I was an inexperienced youth, and I didn't know what I was on about and had no right to be doing what I was doing. When I did, we did some campaigning against period stigma in my local city centre. I lived in the capital city, you know, it's very busy. And I went out on a Saturday and we got reusable cardboard boxes that we got from the local shop, drew all over them, and said, you know, come on, let's beat period stigma. I had some great friends come out with me at the time. We got a lot of abuse. The whole thing had to end because a group of men were screaming at us and we had to run into a shop. It got really, really out of hand, even with adult supervision. For me, I know that that's the stigma and that's the embarrassment that people have, deeming it unacceptable, because that's the lessons that have been brought down in society forever. You know, when I was doing my research, I went back as far as Mary I in Tudor times. And I found out that all the palace officials and everyone that worked in the parliament as well, almost they had a calendar. And of course, they used that calendar. Of course, we know now that that couldn't have been on time or anything, but they used that calendar to almost plan everything that happened so that nothing fell on the time of when the Queen would be on her period. Now, we know, I'm a historian, I take history, we know that Mary I had a lot of troubles with her fertility and with her health and everything. That was always used against her, and it's something today that is still stuck with her. So this is something that's come down in society. It's something that we've just accepted is not acceptable to talk about, but really it is. I come back again and say it's a natural bodily function. So yeah, as this inexperienced youth, I had to work out, you know, how to juggle my time between school. You know, I was overcoming a lot of illnesses as well. Going back to school was still a big jump, but even then I decided to throw myself into even more. And I did find over times, which is when my sister came in, that I just simply wasn't well enough to run the campaign. So my sister Tilly, who is now 13, she would have been 11 at the time, and when I started the campaign, stood in. She, you know, she did a lot of the social media work for me, and still today does a lot of the social media work for me. Because it is a lot more work than it seems. You know, I do put a few posts up on Instagram and it seems like I could have just screenshot them and put them up, but no, everything is planning. So I think, right, I've got across this social media, I've got 5,000 followers. I need to think, who could I be following? Is there anything in there that anyone could take the wrong way? Am I gender stereotyping? Am I being inclusive to everyone? Is it thing, you know, for talks like this as well? I've got my notes, but I've got to, you know, make sure you know what you're saying and you have a plan. You have to think these things through before you do it. So I will be honest, that is a lot of work. And also it is a battle, like I've said before, on this period dignity roundtable, when I'm talking out and I eventually lose it with these governors and local councillors. It's their job to, you know, be difficult. It's their job to question you because they've got a budget, and you've got to make them realise that this is important enough for them to spend their time on, which is valuable. And, you know, they're very busy. So it is a lot of work, especially as a young person, to be able to convince, you know, the First Minister, who's been doing politics all his life and, you know, knows what he's doing, that this is an issue that really, really matters. But at the end of the day, like I've said, it's so rewarding, and it's really important that you turn all those, what I don't want to call them negatives, because I don't believe in negatives. I saw this brilliant quote that I shared on the Love Your Period Instagram page the other day, says there are never wins and losers, there's just wins and lessons. And really, I learn from everything that I do, and that's how I better not just my campaign work and my campaign, but also myself as a person, because I've got to realize that I am a youth activist. I am a young person. I can learn from adults, as much as young people, and I know I back them all the time, and they're like, oh, we don't want to be like our parents' generation whatsoever. There are lessons that can be taken, and there are really big successes that allow us to live the way that we do today that they achieved. So really it's about, being able to learn a lesson every day, not recognizing where you're wrong as such. It's, everything's got to be a positive turn of, right, what can I do differently? How can I improve on what I'm doing? And every day, I started this over 2 years ago now, but I've still, every day I learn I've got to do, change something or do something slightly differently. Even if that just makes a difference to one person, that's still one extra person that you're helping. So my top tips for being a youth activist would first don't be intimidated. It's technically fake it until you make it. And I kid you not, I do that today. I all the time, I walk into these events, I walk into these things, of course, not as much now because of COVID, whereas now today, I'm sat in it's a nice cardigan, I put on a nice cardigan for you, and I did my hair for you, but, I'm in my environment, I'm sat on my comfy bed, there's, it's my thing, but when I'm going to the Welsh Government, I've got to be dressed up and, really formal, have my language appropriately. Everything matters. And it does feel like a lot of effort because for some people, that's an everyday thing because it's their job and they're there. These ministers, they know how to do it. But, you just got to put that confidence into yourself and go, right, I can do this, and just go for it. Everyone feels the same. Like, I know right now, it probably comes across that I'm really confident. I know everything that I'm saying, but that's because I'm so passionate that really, even though I've got my notes, everything that I've said so far has just come out, because when you have that topic and that issue that matters to you and, you really enjoy what you do, you're able to talk about it like that. So you've got to work out why you care about that issue. So if you've got an issue that you keep thinking over and over, like, right, what is the reason that it either makes you angry or makes you want to do something? Why is there a fire burning inside of you when you think or talk about this said topic, no matter what it may be? It's really important that you do feel that passion. Otherwise, this uphill battle of starting any sort of youth activism just won't be worth it. It won't be enjoyable for you. But if you have a topic where you're able to pinpoint exactly why it matters to you, then that uphill battle will be a breeze and it won't even feel like much of an issue. And it's something you'll always be thankful that you did. When people ask me, and I always get in media interviews and things, why did you start the Love Your Period campaign? That's the easiest question for me now. And it's always been the same answer since the moment I started the Instagram page, when it wasn't even a campaign, because I cannot see the people around me suffer when I saw what happened when I brought these products into school, what happened when the judges and the people watched me speak about period poverty, what happened when I was in my city centre and people reacted in such a negative way to teenagers. I cannot stand and let that happen. And, even though all of that was then, now I can feel like my stomach muscles tensing because it's just, it was all worth it. And it will be worth it if you're really, really passionate about it. And this why of something should be, it should come naturally to you. You should know straight away what it is you want to do. I think that's possibly the difference between whether you're thinking of starting your own thing or joining something. If you've got a direct answer instantly of why you want to change something and why something needs to be changed, and you've got a plan all these ideas coming to you, then go for it, start something. If you're not too sure, then you can still make a difference by joining a campaign or a charity that's already established, because every person is valid, which goes on to my next point. Going it alone is great, but there is nothing wrong whatsoever, or there's nothing that makes your role less valid if you go with a campaign or a charity already established, or you work with co-activists, because every single person is valid and every single person is equal. On my Love Your Period team today, we have my sister, myself, and two friends that kind of step in. One was brilliant when I step in, when I have flare-ups of my illness, who's my age, who's done brilliantly, and one of my sister's friends to have that point of view. It doesn't matter that I was the one that started the campaign 2 years ago, and it's my sister's friend that joined 2 months ago. Her and I are exactly the same. We are just as valid and we are just as vital to this campaign. And it's really important, not just for you to recognize that for your own self-worth, but recognize that for the people around you. Everyone there has that fire, and everyone is there for a reason. So it's that respect and that you deserve, but also you need to give in order for campaigning to work. Every now and again, let's say my sister, at the beginning, she gets an equal amount of media, let's say it was media attention as I do. And we were having a discussion about it, and she turned around and said, yeah, well, you're the one that's planning posts until 10 o'clock at night, and you're the one doing this and you're the one doing that. You should have more. But it was really not about that at all. You shouldn't be in it for that. You shouldn't be in it for the mark on your CV or for the media attention. You should be in it because you want to make a change. So like I said, it doesn't matter, the lovely girl that joined us 2 months ago, she is an equal part of this team. It is 25% across the 4 of us, and without one of us, it doesn't matter whether it's me or her, this campaign can't run the way it is. You need to realize your self-worth, but also the worth of others around you, and really use that equality, which is why I think it's very different to a job, because it's not like you've got a manager or such. Yes, there's going to be managers and people have different roles and different names, but really when it comes to campaigning and activism, everyone is vital, and that includes you. You are a vital person, whether you are joining an established charity or campaign, or whether you start something yourself. So yeah, if you're sat there thinking, right, I've got this topic, but I'm not 100% sure, don't go it alone, or go about it another way like I did. I didn't traditionally start it the way you would a campaign. I just started an Instagram page and hoped for the best, because if I'm honest, that was the only social media I really used and knew how to use, and it was all I was doing because I was off school and I didn't have a lot to do. You don't need to know everything about your topic. Like I said, you learn something every day. Make sure you know enough, but see who's done what when you go into these things. See, right, here's my topic. Sorry, it's my puppy. If you can hear her, you have to ignore her. Where was I? Doing research, yes. It's about what other people may have done. Has someone tried to campaign for the issue that you've thought about maybe 20 years ago and it didn't get anywhere? Is there anything in the media at all? When it came to period poverty, for me, there was literally nothing for Wales on the media whatsoever. I looked on everything in all the archives. And the only media attention really about period poverty was the campaign for ending the tampon tax and Amika George's free periods. Apart from that, there was nothing for the UK media, which of course we realised that the media is huge in all these things. It effectively the media powers and it makes and breaks campaigns. You know, we go back as far as the Black Civil Rights Movement. You know, Martin Luther King wouldn't have been where he was if the media wasn't on his side. You know, it's a key factor for federal action. And, you know, it doesn't matter how big, whether it's such a huge issue like that will remain in history and, you know, go down as a time where we will all learn about, and we will all think about. But, or if it's, you know, a Welsh girl trying to get some products in some schools, you know, the media is really, really useful. So see if they've covered it, see who's done what. That's definitely a place to start. Look at where it's been covered in the media. Are there any charities that touch upon the issue? Every day I come across, I know I've mentioned the Brooks Sex Positive and Sexual Wellbeing Charity. They do a lot of work on menstruation education and campaigning for it, that I was able to kind of partner with them. And that way, it was able to, even though I was working with them and it was me working with their charity, I was able to help my campaign, you know, get to people that really may have needed it. And you've just got to power through this hate. You know, I hate to use the word hate, even though I've just used it again. I really do not like the word hate. I hope that you've noticed that every piece of language I'm trying to use, you've got to switch into that positive. Otherwise, it's really easy to get yourself into the, oh, well, I can't be bothered. What's the point? Or if you're having a bad day, almost destroying the work that you've already done, or the work that you know, are wanting to achieve, because it's not worth it. And you are going to have adults look down on you. And, you know, it's like when people say bullies, it's just because they're insecure and they want to be you. It's the same thing. These adults, you know, they can't quite cope with what's around them, but there are amazing people out there that will listen. And there are people in power and contacts you may have that, you know, can help you. And that's another really important point with youth activism. You don't realize who could help you. So by me going into my school and saying to my head teacher, you know, I want to do something with this, but I'm not quite sure who. And she has a contact with another head teacher, you know, or teachers who, you know, they're great to go to, or youth leaders, all sorts. You never know who's going to be useful. Your local Rotary Club, everyone here will have them. They are an amazing organisation. They always want to hear about these things. If it weren't for my Rotary Club today, I wouldn't be able to do half the things that we do. I don't get any funding from anywhere. I'm not paid for what I do. All the work that I have to do is I have to fund myself. But the Rotary Club, after some time, were able to, you know, use their contacts and get some money for me to do some extra work for hygiene and food banks and for the homeless shelters. And if it weren't for them, I wouldn't have been able to fund so many NHS products in the end, that hopefully is still being used today and have been used over the COVID-19 pandemic. So you really don't know who's going to be a useful contact. And if, you know, you could be sitting there going, well, I don't know anyone that's going to be able to help me. You really don't know. Just start the conversation with someone. You know, everything off social media is a lot more powerful than on. I find that the way that I went about it probably wasn't the best way to go about it. I had no plan, but for me, that was what was successful and what worked. And I find that with a lot of the things that I do in my life. I'm the kind of person that the less I think about it, the more I'll achieve it. Or, you know, in a way, that starting the Instagram, that power of social media then was able to help me move on the campaign. But it was simply that everything was powered by my actions and my movements. The way you've got to think about it is, right, tomorrow social media is gone. Then what are you going to do? For me, that just means that there isn't really a story of the work that I've told. I use Instagram and our Twitter page at @LoveYourPeriod1 And I've started using TikTok, which I'm not great at, but we're getting somewhere. That's at Love Your Period as well. To just share the work that we're doing in person. And as COVID, luckily we're starting to get down, start getting vaccines, start to open up again. That's something that I'll be able to do even more in person than before. But social media really is just there to kind of boost and show off your work. For me, of course, now in the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm able to do menstruation education and things on there, but everything that was in person before. And I found out that doing it in person, no matter how nervous it made me or how anxious it made me, because you've got to remember, when I was ill, I didn't have any social contact with any of my friends. I didn't really leave my house. So I was very much cooped away. My mum became my safety net. I all of a sudden needed her again, like I was 10 years old. And, getting back out there was really, really scary, and a lot more scary than it would have been, even if I hadn't gone through that. But it makes activism so much easier because you're being in person. You can see the reactions on people's faces. The rewards that they seek out of it. Me, it's all about what someone can gain from my information, what someone can gain from my page, not about what I can gain. Anything that I gain is a bonus and is something that I realize afterwards. But everything I think of, I think, right, yes, my well-being comes first, but when I'm thinking about my campaigning, is this something that's going to benefit someone, or is this something that's going to benefit me? Because I would need to do something that's going to benefit, even if it's just one person. You don't realize how that could pass on. For me, that ended up, passing on to be 4,000 people on Instagram wanting to engage in menstruation education. That was never something where I went, okay, we'll post this because we'll get more followers. It's, we will post this because this person might save it, this person might share it and share it to someone that really needs it. So I see my followers as people that need this education, people that are going to be sat in front of me if I went into a school and want that help. We have parents come forward asking for resources and help in teaching their children, and teenagers come forward and young people saying, look, I've started my period, I don't know how to tell my mum, or I don't know how to tell my dad, or what do I do? Is this normal? Do I need to go see a doctor? And those questions that people may think are stupid questions or people would laugh at, someone needs to be there to answer those. So can you help someone in a way that maybe someone else wouldn't be able to? So are you going to be that young person that is there to help another young person who wouldn't have gone to an adult or wouldn't have sought advice otherwise? It doesn't matter whether you're campaigning over, the climate emergency or the Kill the Bill protests or period poverty. Someone's movements, someone's activism always changes someone else's lives. And that's the thing. You as a person may think, well, there's nothing I can do. I remember thinking that. I was like, first of all, I'm in Wales. That really doesn't put me in a good position. If I was in England, I'd probably be able to succeed better. But in Wales, there is no way I'll be listened to. At the time I was 16, so I'm a 16-year-old girl in school. I'm not getting my GCSEs anymore, so people will think I'm uneducated and I'll have all these things thrown at me. What action am I going to make? But it was that overcomplicating that possibly, took away a few days from what I could have done. Because if you think right, so look at all Kill the Bill protests. If every single person there thought, oh, I'm not going to go because if I, as a person, there's nothing I can do myself. Imagine every single person there thought that and they didn't go, but they didn't. Everyone went, and then these huge things the media captured, it all came together. So you can make a difference, and you have to do it now. You've got to do something you're passionate about. And yes, it's really, really scary, but that's a good thing. Maybe you think the issue doesn't matter, it's not a huge society priority. Do it anyway. You know, I never spoke about period poverty ever in my area before. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know what it was. And I'd never heard about it from the Welsh Government or local council. And it wasn't in the media. You've got to start that conversation. And like I said, you think you can't make a difference? Well, imagine if every person came forward about that issue that had some sort of passion about it, the difference that they could make, you know, together. And, you know, I'll end before we go on to questions now, of my favorite line that I always say to everyone, and I've always said to myself: if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? You've got the chance. Just do it. Go for it. It's so worth it. So yeah, questions. Sorry, I've talked for ages.
Molly, that was so amazing. Thank you. So great. I know Lizzie's had a hand up.
I just had to figure out how to use this flaming thing. Yeah, I was trying to think of how to phrase it now. Yeah, well, I grew up in quite a military-ish family. Like my granddad and great uncle David were both military, and like, so you're probably going to hear a lot of military puns out of me. But like I've noticed like a lot of people being silenced because they don't have that support network. And it's gotten to a point where I've been in A&E departments, I've been in police stations, I've been like even dragging people off of bridges and things because it's gotten that bad for them. And in terms of changing things for the better, around period poverty and around any other kind of poverty, whether that be the mental health crisis, whether that be the housing crisis, whether that be food crises, I do think that we should join forces and, well, put the metaphorical boot through the door. Because like, I've had similar experiences, like where I've been stood up in front of old cisgender white men, having them basically chew me out as words that I shouldn't say. And yeah, all I've done is basically stood there, smiled at them, and carried on talking because they hate it. They get so mad by a seemingly insignificant voice. Whereas, like you said, if one person speaks, another person's going to hear it, and if 1,000 people speak, everyone's going to hear it, you know. And if 5,000 people on your Instagram, if they all speak, how loud's that going to be? You're going to reach millions, and you're going to, yeah, you're going to, phrasing. Like your voice has kick-started the voices of thousands, potentially millions, more than you'll ever know. And I think we should join forces and take it further.
I think that's brilliant. And I tell you what, isn't it amazing how a talk like this, you know, you never know what you're going to do. You see an opportunity, you see something you can sign up to. And by doing that, you never know who you're going to talk to. And you are right, you know, that one person can literally turn into the whole planet. Everything you've said, you know, around every sector of where campaigning and where change is needed, that applies everywhere. And so, yeah, definitely.
Right. Also, quickly before I mute myself again, I think, like, because as a person who won't experience a conventional menstrual cycle, like, I will get the cramping and I will get my body screaming at me for not having a kid in it. Even though I won't have a naturally working vagina or uterus, oh bloody hell, you know, I still feel like people who weren't born with a quote unquote female setup, which I don't understand that term anyway. What's the point in describing someone's gender based on their genitals? It means nothing. Like, it's just a piece of code written by some proteins that make a bit of flesh go a different shape. That's it. And I came up with a bit of a quote around the time that I came out and starting my process, and I'm going to use my one little bit of swearing on this. The toilet takes the piss, so why should you? You know.
I love that. It's a brilliant.
Yeah, you can have that.
Thank you. Yeah, but you're right. Everything you're saying has complete validity. Sorry, can't speak. Yeah, you are. And it's also being able to, people in your position would, may feel more comfortable. Like, you don't know who's going to be on here today, may think, wow, that was really good of them to say and really brave of them to say. I now feel more comfortable speaking about myself, or I feel more comfortable, talking about things that I've never spoken about before. So you are right. Just, these conversations, these sort of things, these talks, it doesn't matter how big or small, it doesn't matter whether it's 5,000 people on Instagram or something like this, you do make a difference. And I think young people really hold that power, sometimes more than adults. I think if I didn't start my campaign when I was 16 and I waited till I was 18, I would have done less, because as a 16-year-old, young people work really, really well with young people, and young people trust young people more than adults these days. So it's, really important that people that do feel able to do stand up and make a change.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Have you, like, a lot of things that you spoke about today really resonated with me, and I just wondered, I really like what you were saying about how it doesn't matter what you do, it's everyone's equally valid no matter what part they have to play. I feel like that's really important message to give out to people. And I just wondered if, obviously you said that you've come up against some difficulties, as all campaigns do. Did you ever think, oh, do you know what, stuff this, I'm going to delete it, I've had enough? And like, how did you work through that, if you did, like, if you have ever felt like that?
So there were definitely times before the pandemic where I thought, you know what, I'm just going to pass this on to the other people in the team. I'm not going to have anything to do with it anymore. And especially like when I was doing my work in the city centre, and after that whole ambush, I remember crying in the shop, and so I was just terrified, thinking like, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't fair. This isn't right. I think that's when you've got a passion for something, and that's how you're going to make a change, is when it doesn't go much further than that. It's a moment of self-doubt, and then it's a realization 10 minutes later. I think that's the difference between something that's going to be a successful run, and it's something that may be not unsuccessful, but maybe something that you can join forces on someone else with, to have that other person there to help you. Because, at the end of the day, no one should have to take any abuse for anything, and no one should have to take any negativity around work that they're trying to do to make a difference. But there's always going to be people there to do that. So for me, I really do think that it was because I was so passionate, and because I was so angry about the issue, that never for one moment in my mind was I considering deleting anything or getting rid of the work that I've done. It was just a 10-minute, wow, what was that? I don't want to do it anymore. But that's as far as it went. So that definitely helped me get through. But if you do find you're in a position where you're like, oh no, I definitely want to give this up now, you don't quite want to, there's that niggle in your mind going, oh yeah, I've got to carry on doing what I'm doing. Try join forces with someone, or with someone that's already started something, to allow 2 people there or more people in order to keep that mindset going.
Thank you. Lizzie, have you got one more?
Yeah, like I wanted to say that I sort of thrive off of annoying people. I mean, that sounds counterintuitive, but there are only 2 ways you're ever going to get people to react, and that's by pleasing them or displeasing them. And if you please someone, they're not going to tell anyone about you. So if you annoy them, they're gonna start ranting and raving about you, like especially behind your back. But one person who gets annoyed by you talking about something that you are passionate about or that you know about, they'll tell 9 or 10 people, and out of those 9 or 10 people, you're gonna have 3 or 4 people who are like, hang on a minute, that person's actually talking a great deal of sense here. And then, I reckon that'll have been the case with a lot of your followers on Instagram, with people giving it large about, behind your back, and they're just like, hang on, I like this person, I like what they're saying, I'll give them a cheeky little follow.
Yeah, eventually you will always get through to the right people, which is carry on doing what you're doing, because you will always get through to the right people, and you don't know, who someone's going to talk to for them to go, I'm going to find out more about that, I'm going to get involved, and that might be a really important contact for you in the end.
Cool. Well, I could talk to you all day, Molly, or listen to you talk all day, but it's 2 o'clock. So thank you so much for everyone coming. Thank you very much to Molly. Can you give her a virtual or in your own space round of applause? Thanks so much for joining our talk today. If you want to find out more about Molly Fenton and the Love Your Period campaign, you can follow them on Instagram at Love Your Period. And you can find out more about the Know Your Flow campaign at the Warren by following the Warren Youth Project on our socials, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to get involved with our period focus group as a young person to help us campaign, please get in touch with l@thewarren.org. So email l@thewarren.org. Thanks, see you next time.